following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio, streaming, and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana Kersner, and I'm not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health using my top 10 sayings for going good crazy. Do we like that change? Going good crazy instead of being your best self? Because, we can't really expect sanity these days. Our choices are good crazy and bad crazy. Sanity? What's that? Let me know if you like the change to the opening. Liana at nottherapyshow.com, or just go to nottherapyshow.com. Join the mailing list while you're there. At nottherapyshow on X. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Yeah, that was a shameless attempt at getting people to send messages, wasn't it? I regret nothing. This week, we're going to talk about the communication mistakes you're probably making. And yeah, that's not how I would have worded it, but common communication errors doesn't have enough sizzle for the induced narcissism of the internet. The first common mistake, see, I've already dropped the title, but now I've tagged the title, so now the title is not clickbait. The first common mistake we're going to talk about is something I've touched on before, but based on how much of it I've seen lately, I want to circle back on it. Misusing I feel statements. I feel statements are designed to take the accusatory elements out of the speaker's communication, but thanks to multiple generations of people getting a lot of ineffective therapy, I feel statements have been weaponized so that people can make accusations while claiming they're just expressing their feelings. That's filtered down into popular usage. Millennials on down, I've noticed, but even some Gen Xers and even boomers have picked up this thing that I didn't frequently encounter until maybe 15 years ago. But anyway, people get this sense that something is kind of wrong with this whole I feel that you are wrong system, but they don't quite know what, because the original purpose of the style has been lost. And so what that means is that a lot of people have adopted some pretty manipulative language without realizing what it does just to fit in. If your friends say, I feel, you're going to say, I feel. Let me give you some examples, I feel that you don't care about me. I feel that you are not understanding what I'm saying. I feel that you are not listening. These statements do contain the words I feel, but then they follow with the word you. The original intent of I feel statements was to remove the word you from the equation. Those were previously known as you statements. You want to take out the you statements and use the I statements. And the whole purpose was to take out the accusation. But that you has slipped back in because the urge to project those bad feelings and lay blame on others is just so strong. So we've developed a relationship with I feel that you, similar to Game of Thrones Ned Stark's attitude towards the word but. Everything before the word but is a lie. Everything before the word you in I feel that you is a lie. I said but. It's true though, isn't it? You don't care about me isn't a feeling. It's an opinion. It's a story you're telling yourself about what the other person is experiencing. And hey, it may very well be true, but it could also be wrong. It's a guess. Your own feelings, happy, sad, angry, and so on, those are never wrong, which is why we talk about always validating true I feel statements. But I feel that you statements put the other person in a catch-22. Either that person invalidates the I feel part, or they agree that something is happening inside them that actually isn't, and that invalidates their own feelings. And that catch-22 is why I feel that you statements are manipulative. I feel that you statements communicate the demand that someone sacrifices their own awareness of what they're thinking and feeling to validate a statement containing I feel that isn't really a feeling to avoid violating some sort of social code. But the actual feeling, I said but again, the actual feeling involved in I feel that you don't care about me is I feel lonely. I feel worthless. I feel anxious. I feel insecure. The you don't care about me part is the story a person is telling themselves about where that loneliness, worthlessness, anxiety, and or insecurity is coming from. It's an assumption that, again, may not be true. And not being able to separate that feeling from the story about the feeling can blow up a lot of relationships and lead to a lot of misery, especially if you have a fear of abandonment. Because think about it. People eventually get fed up being accused of things without the inability to challenge the claim, because challenging the claim that came after I feel is invalidating feelings. People can only take that for so long before they're like, I am being invalidated. I never get to say what's true for me without being told I'm doing it wrong. I'm out of here. But it's actually how I feel. Some of you will claim, I can hear you through the radio and internet. I can feel the spirit, right? No, that's not how you feel. No, it's not how you feel. It's what you think. You think that other person doesn't care about you. You're afraid that other person doesn't care about you. And that thinking, that fear, leads to feeling rejected. Fear, rejection, that's the actual feeling. And it may not be necessary to feel this way. It could be transference. It could be deflection and projection. Look around for evidence. Is the person actively showing that they don't care? Or maybe, just maybe, there are signs they do care that you are missing because of that overwhelming fear based on past negligence, abandonment, or trauma. I say top 10 phrase, listen twice before you talk once, for that reason. Nobody likes to be the screen that you project your past bad experiences onto. Now, to be clear, it's not wrong to tell someone that you think they don't care about you. That's okay as long as you say it as an I think. And they're allowed to disagree. That's the beginning of a discussion or even an argument. The important thing to keep in mind is that you don't care about me is an accusation, not just a feeling, even if you tack I feel that onto the you don't care about me. And people are allowed to have their own feelings about this wrapped up accusation. Similar claims, things that fall into the same category are, I feel that you're not supporting me. I feel that you don't have my back. I feel that you're never around. The other person will likely be able to think of examples of things that prove you are never around isn't true, especially if you're talking to them in person right there. They'll have examples of when they had your back or they supported you. It's more likely that the support they're giving just isn't of a form that actually makes you feel supported. That's fair. One person's support is another person's smothering or micromanaging. Some people just need that verbal pick-me-up. Atta boy, go get him. Atta girl, atta them. Happy Pride. But for some people, that you got this feels only like lip service. What they need is actual support with specific tasks. They need action. These are all things that can be discussed and negotiated if everybody's in the realm of I think instead of wrapping it in I feel. Because of this, it's very important to keep in mind that I feel that you're not supporting me enough. Even if it is totally a true thought, you don't feel like you're getting enough support. You don't think that you're getting enough support. That no matter if you put I feel or I think on the top of that, it will read as criticism to the other person. Those person will have feelings and respond accordingly. That's not an excuse for them to scream and yell at you. No, it's not. But it is likely the other person will feel hurt if they believe that the claim that they're not supporting you enough isn't true. Okay, some of you still may not be convinced because this I feel thing is so ingrained. Let's try some extreme examples of that, accusation steak wrapped in the bacon of I feel that. It's filet mignon. Oh, that was terrible. Okay, here we go. I feel that you are a pedophile. Yeah, nobody's going to see that as anything but a cutesy way of calling them a pedophile. I feel that you are a liar. Where is that in the feelings wheel? I feel that you are racist. Someone actually tried that one on me. Someone said, I feel that you are racist. And I was feeling magnanimous that day. And so I asked them, why do you feel that I'm racist? What made you feel that way? And their answer was, I'm not kidding. You are racist because I feel that you are. It was circular logic said with his whole chest. And he didn't see the problem. There are a lot of highly educated people walking around not seeing these problems because, in part, they've been taught a bad habit. Another part is they've been taught to intellectualize their feelings. And that's the second common communication mistake I'll get to after the break. Yes, intellectualizing. Oh, I'm an intellectualizer. Everybody does it to some degree or another. I'll get to why it's a problem after the break, so stay tuned. Is there a communication habit you can't stand? I can cover it in a future show. Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com if you can't remember how to spell my name. Fill out the contact form while you're there. Join our mailing list at Not Therapy Show on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. We'll be right back with more ways you might be screwing up communication after this on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back and It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist, and we are still talking about ways you might be screwing up communications. Before the break, I talked about misusing I feel statements, which are a subcategory of a larger problem: intellectualizing emotions. Now, intellectualizing emotions is a defense mechanism. And defense mechanisms not only aren't all bad, they are necessary to retain our good crazy in a world where sanity is fleeting. If you need to keep it together in a really bad situation, intellectualizing is a helpful short-term tool. Again, we have defense mechanisms for a reason. I am not invalidating the concept of defense mechanisms. But if you overdo it, if you're trying to intellectualize for too long, or worse, you're trying to do it all the time because some great value cognitive behavioral therapist made you think that this makes you superior to people who actually feel your feelings, you could be projecting and deflecting your emotions onto other people without realizing it, because intellectualization is a very close neighbor to repression and a concept called splitting. Intellectualization, repression, and splitting are all forms of dissociation. Dissociation means you're disconnecting from your thoughts, feelings, memories, or sense of identity. We all do some form of it, especially when we're hit with overwhelming negative emotions or sometimes physical pain. The thing about dissociating is it's not disassociating. It's not, I am choosing to leave. It happens like a blast door slamming down. Wham! It just happens faster than thought. It can't do this, checking out, right? When you're dissociating, when you're trying to communicate, if you can't connect to your own feelings, thoughts, memories, sense of identity, you're not going to be great at understanding and connecting to someone else's thoughts, feelings, memories, or sense of identity. And that's why it's very important to recognize when we are dissociating. Sometimes it's better to disassociate, say, I can't talk about this now, give me 20 minutes, than try to have a conversation when you are dissociated. If you try to have a conversation when you are dissociated, there are many, many ways you can come off as a complete jerk. Now, we tend to understand why emotional repression is bad, though some of us find it necessary to do, especially around our families. That's obviously a bad sign. It's a very common problem, right? You hear the sound in my voice. Yeah. And splitting, we can intellectually understand the problems with seeing someone as all good or all bad, even though we do it to actors, musicians, and political candidates all the time. Oh, come on, you're saying. Those aren't real people, right? They're not real. They're actors. They're politicians. No, that's the problem. Those people you're treating like scum or garbage, they're people. And real people are complex. They are never only one thing. If you're looking at something objectively, you'll be able to find at least one good thing in that person you can't stand, or at least one less than perfect thing in that person you think is great. Right? Right. But intellectualization, so often in society, in culture, we treat that as a lofty goal. There's a lot of confusion out there about the pros and cons of it. In the short term, like I said, really useful. But it also puts you at risk of denial and cognitive distortions, which increase the longer you intellectualize instead of actually feeling your feelings. If you don't feel your feelings, you're going to end up projecting and deflecting them onto other people. Right? So here's an example. Somebody says something really nasty to you and you intellectualize. You don't feel the hurt. You don't go, oh, that hurt. You pull up an online test and you take it. It shows that person who attacked you as a narcissist, right? That's a story you're telling yourself to not feel the hurt of the nasty name or the cheap shot. But deep down, those online tests are not definitive, and that person statistically probably isn't a narcissist, so you just end up feeling worse because what you're doing is kind of pathetic, and you eventually spiral when you start feeling the amassed awful of not only the original nastiness, but all the petty stuff you did to try to not feel that hurt. When we're intellectualizing feelings instead of feeling them, we tend to communicate a lot of panic, resentment, anger, bitterness, fear without realizing it. because we're sitting on this pile of unfelt feelings and bursting at the seams from it. We can seem paranoid, hostile, unstable, sometimes downright mean. And there are few things more unnerving than someone insisting that they're fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. Right? When they are clearly not fine. Or it's not reasonable to expect them to be fine. There are some times when not being fine is not only okay, but something's deeply wrong if someone isn't. If someone, it seems fine when they probably won't be when they stop intellectualizing. But intellectualizing can also seem cold, distant, uncaring, disinterested, and checked out. And neither, paranoid, hostile, unstable, or mean, or cold, distant, uncaring, and checked out are great for relationships, personal or professional. I mean, no one likes a know-it-all. And I know, again, intelligence is so valued, perhaps overvalued in our society. Getting the right answer, right? Thing is, people hate being armchair psychoanalyzed, and people have the right to not talk to you if all they get from you is communications of the "you're objectively wrong and here's why" variety, especially when your objective logic doesn't actually make much sense or makes, glaring false assumptions right at the beginning. Chronic intellectualizers, in my experience, can also be chronic explainers, and this can wear out the people around them. If someone has an allergy to being wrong, or they can tell you everything that's wrong with you, not them, it wasn't them, here's why they're not wrong, here's why you wrong, and they always have a reason, excuse, or rationalization for behavior, and they don't respond well to being told their reasons don't make it any more understandable, okay, or better, that's someone people will eventually distance themselves from for absolutely logical reasons. If nothing is your fault, if it's always someone else's fault, eventually people will go, fine, it's my fault, bye, see ya, right? But that's a betrayal. They're supposed to understand. People who care about you are supposed to understand, right? That right there is emotional blackmail territory. And that's the common communication error we're going to tackle after the break. Questions, comments, any feedback whatsoever. Liana at nottherapyshow.com. At nottherapyshow.com is a website. If you forget my name to spell in the email, join the mailing list while you're there. Fill out the contact form. At nottherapyshow.com is the socials. When we come back, emotional blackmail. How you might be doing it without being aware you're doing it on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist, and we are still talking about common ways people go wrong communicating. And it's time, I teased it before the break, it's time to talk about the dreaded emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail means using another person's fear, guilt, or sense of obligation or loyalty to get them to comply with a demand. That means it's inherently coercive, punitively withholding affection or threatening retaliation to get someone to do what you want them to do are forms of emotional blackmail. So is telling someone they're emotionally blackmailing you when they're legitimately not comfortable being affectionate. Confused already? Welcome to the realm of psychological manipulations. There are so many manipulative behaviors out there that we don't see as manipulations. Anytime you are torquing or withholding information from someone so they're not making a fully informed choice based on their best interests instead of what you want them to do, that is a manipulation. No, really, it is. You can have your reasons. If you're going to manipulate someone for a good reason, you have to at least acknowledge you are manipulating them. Something as simple as, this drives me crazy, okay? Asking someone how they are when you don't actually want to hear an honest answer. This happens every day, but it's a form of manipulation. It's getting points for being nice or polite. But if the other person says, I'm actually doing terribly, whoa, hey, whoa, too much, overshare. That's violating a social norm, right? I hate that a lot. It's compassion theater. I hate compassion theater. In abusive relationships, the victims have to manipulate the abuser to some extent to delay, pause the abuse. If you grew up in a home with an abuser, an addict, or both, you have learned manipulations. You have to unlearn to have truly healthy relationships. No one is going to save you from those habits. You have to break the habits. A lot of people's parents, notably people's mothers, engage in a lot of emotional blackmail. Dads can do it too, but moms, a lot of moms are champion emotional blackmailers. It's become so normalized. I see it as punchlines in sitcoms, and it's like, there are so many examples of this that I'm having trouble finding, a handful. Choice paralysis, too many. Emotional blackmail is any statement of the form, if you do what I want, I'll give you this basic scrap of human dignity that everybody actually deserves, except you, unless you do what I want. When you put it that way, it makes sense. I got into it recently with a family member who, they've done a bad. I don't want to air family dirty laundry, but instead of just, having a conversation like grown-ups, which we both are, the family member dramatically announced, I have no idea why you're so angry with me. I love you. My response, which is the social norm wrong answer, but I stand by it as a mental health journalist, I guess you'll call me. My response was, well, since you have no idea and you love me, maybe you could, ask why I'm so angry with you. And that ended the conversation. And I was pretty sure it would. Because the intended message wasn't, your anger is valid, and I want to know what I did that caused you to be so angry, that led to you being so angry. The intended message was, you're not allowed to be angry with me. And that hurt. And that's why it's emotional blackmail, right? The most over-the-top example of emotional blackmail I've experienced somewhat recently, though. This one's a doozy. I caught a guy catfishing women on the internet, confronted him about it, and he just kept saying, why are you being like this? Why are you being like this? When I was like, dude, this is wrong. You have to delete this profile and you have to come clean to our friend group or you're out of the friend group. Why are you being like this? Again, the message is, you're not allowed to be angry at me. It was peppered with a lot of, nothing I do is ever going to be enough. I can try this thing, but it won't work. You're setting me up to fail. Stuff like that. Why are you being like this? Well, I'm like this because his behavior is disgusting. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. I'm frightened that somebody was doing this right under my nose. And I'm allowed to have those feelings. The reality is that everyone is allowed to be angry sometimes at you or anyone else. They're not allowed to be abusive. Top 10 phrase, other people don't have to like your boundaries, but they do have to respect them. A person, well, angry, ideally can validate that they still like or love you even when they're angry. They should be able to recall your positive qualities. And yes, I'm using should here. This is something that happens in instances of healthy anger. Anger is just often not expressed in healthy ways because people deny that they're angry because anger is bad. You're not allowed to be angry. And so that's when the splitting happens, right? That you're no good, very bad all of a sudden because, they're feeling a feeling that's bad. They're angry. So because anger is bad, you must be bad, right? Getting angry without losing control and lashing out is a learned skill. It's something we learn in building blocks in human development. We don't have the capacity when we're born. We have to learn about our own self and our own state of mind. And then we have to learn and understand the feelings of others and that we're capable of hurting those feelings in order to build this concept of I can feel something and it doesn't control what I do. You cannot control your emotions. You can't control your behavior. But the fine art of getting angry without losing control can't be learned if you can't admit you're angry. Healing from abuse means confronting the fact that you might be afraid of anger in yourself as well as other people. I was afraid of anger for a long time because I didn't want to be like my abusive biological father. And anyone who wanted to emotional blackmail me, you're just like your father. All they had to say is you're just like your father, and I'd probably do whatever they wanted. It wasn't kind, but it was effective. I finally realized, though, the part of my biological father's problem is that he never owned his anger. He never took responsibility for it. Someone always made him do every bad thing he did. Oh, they made him. They made him break things. They made him scream. They made him abuse. They made him punish, right? And all the while, someone else was making him do things. He'd rant about other people needing more emotional control. None of it was true. He made choices. And yeah, choosing to own your anger and state that you're owning your anger, say, I'm angry, means manipulative blackmailers will attempt to make you the bad guy, and sometimes they will succeed. Emotional blackmailers will engage in emotional blackmail about how scary you are when you're angry. If you're not name-calling, screaming, putting people down, or being otherwise abusive when you're angry, the fact that they're afraid of anger does not mean that your anger is inherently terrifying. You're not uniquely scary when you're angry. They're afraid of anger. Again, as long as you're not being abusive. If people use the fact that you will admit to being angry to dismiss your feelings or concerns, you have to consider whether you want those people in your life. Because, this whole unhealthy relationship with anger is unhealthy. That was a hilarious circular logic, but you know what I mean, right? Emotional blackmail is an extremely difficult thing to untangle, precisely because it's everywhere. In media, we depict a woman using the fact that a man's attracted to her to get things from him as, feminine wiles, we call it, right? We see that as sexy and empowered, but it's actually emotional blackmail. If you loved me, you'd do this is emotional blackmail. And yes, there are certain things that a person does that indicates that they may not actually love you. Thing is, I found out the hard way that there's no point in pointing that out in situations like that. Abuse isn't love, no matter how much they say it is. Putting you down isn't love. Labeling you negative things isn't love. Denying you affection or reassurance as punishment isn't love. No matter how much they say they're doing it to help you and make you better, it's not helping you. It's not making you better. It's abuse laden with emotional blackmail. But putting you up on a pedestal isn't love either. Oh, you're such a big, strong man. Can you do this thing for me to show how big and strong you are? Oh, you're such a beautiful woman. I want you so bad. I need you. Can you just do this for me? That's manipulation, right? Expressing love and proving love are two totally different things. Building trust, yes, you have to do that. When you first meet and after you've broken it. But after a certain point, it'll start becoming clear that nothing you do is going to be enough to convince that person that you love them or, that you think they're good enough. Because deep down in them, they believe they're unlovable or fatally flawed. You cannot save someone like this in the overwhelming throes of guilt, shame, and blame. They will just drag you down with them. The same goes for a boss you can never impress, a friend you can't get to treat you with basic respect, or that jerk online who keeps trolling you. There are certain basic dignities that everyone deserves. You don't earn them. If the baseline isn't there, it's probably never going to be there. I don't buy this thing of, well, my respect is earned, and until you earn my respect, I'm going to actively disrespect you. No. Not calling people names, not treating people abusively is about you, not them. No one deserves abuse. It's fair to expect that the people around you care about your feelings and treat you with basic respect, even when they're upset with you or disappointed in you. No exceptions. If that baseline isn't there, that people care that you're hurt, they might not be able to stop your hurt. They might not be able to prevent your hurt, but they care that you're hurt. Sometimes it's a necessary hurt, but they do care that you're hurt. That's basic. Okay? You have the right to expect that. No exceptions. Questions, comments, concerns, feedback, Liana at nottherapyshow.com or nottherapyshow.com. If you mess up the spelling of my name in an email, join the mailing list while you're there, fill out the contact form, or socials at nottherapyshow on X, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. All right, we got one more segment. One final way you're probably screwing up your communications. Making people translate your meaning. I'll be back with that in our final segment on It's Not Therapy. Stay tuned. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist, and we're still talking how you're probably screwing up your communications, because we all do these things to some degree or another. We're not going to be perfect. We can't catch them when they happen. The final thing we're going to cover tonight is another very common thing. So again, don't feel uniquely called out if you do this. The final thing is making people translate your meaning. There can be crossover here with emotional blackmail. Ever had someone tell you nothing was wrong, but something is clearly wrong, even though they're saying nothing, what's wrong, nothing. And you're supposed to know that nothing meant something, and you were supposed to continue to push, and you got in trouble for not continuing to push. Yeah, that's a cross-section of emotional blackmail and making people translate your meaning. But sometimes it's just an unclear communication style. Asking questions that aren't really questions, rhetorical questions, and you keep talking, and someone's like, wow, okay. Other people intend to ask questions, but they actually make statements, so it's not clear that there's a question. Other things that make people translate instead of just taking the literal meaning expressed by the sentence. Now, I work with a lot of autistic people, and the anguish that they go through trying to decode what people mean because they know it isn't what they say. It's exhausting. It's hard to listen to, never mind go through. And it's everywhere. There's this thing you're taught in media when you do promotional interviews, right? Don't answer the question asked because it'll probably be stupid. Just hit the talking points that you came there to say, because the host won't read the book. They won't be prepared. I hate this media rule, and you'll notice in these interviews that I do on this show, we don't do that. But the number of shows I've been on that start with something like, so you got some stuff going on. And that's a prompt to talk. It's not even a question, but you're supposed to know that that means it's time for you to say what you're there to say. It's draining. It's not a natural conversation. But these kind of conversations with people talking past each other, they've become normalized. Cable news, social media, online dating apps, even in person. People are talking past each other. They're trying to mind read and predict the future. They say what they think they're supposed to say, not what they really mean. And then they get disappointed that people don't see through that, while simultaneously being terrified that someone is going to see through it. Welcome to the modern anxiety epidemic. That's it in a nutshell. We can't hear ourselves think because we're overloaded by passive aggressiveness, sarcasm, manipulations, and flat out lies. And because humans learn via mimicry, we learn some really faulty ways of communicating. But, and this is so simple, it's maddening. You can't expect someone to know you meant something you didn't say. Now, the flip side of this is that you're not responsible when someone decided you said one thing but actually meant another. Ridiculous phrases like clearly implied pepper our speech. Clearly implied. There's no such thing as a clear implication. If something is clear, it is by definition explicit. A clear implication is an explication. That is actually a word, explication. Clear implication is an oxymoron. That's oxymoron, but my stepfather drilled oxymoron into me. But oxymorons have a purpose in language. They convey meaning. And if someone lives in a world of clear implications, it means they're constantly searching for trickery in the statements of others. So safe bet they're engaging in linguistic trickery themselves, intentionally or not. Again, listen twice before you talk once. If you stop translating and listen deeply and meaningfully to what the other person is saying, even better, clarify and confirm their meaning before responding, conversations become so much more meaningful and connected that way. No one likes being accused of hidden meanings in their speech that they didn't intend. If something comes out the wrong way, that's one thing. If it's based on the actual words used, okay. But if you keep telling someone that they meant something that they didn't say, they're going to get frustrated and not want to be around you. Similarly, if you expect people to pick up your clear implications, the only thing you can really expect is disappointment. Yes, I know, hints and coyness, they're an underpinning of a lot of flirting. And we can't always just come out bluntly with what we mean. Learn from my mistakes. But if you're going to obfuscate, you have to accept that the other person may not pick up on the hidden or dual meaning. And that's before we get to dog whistles. Oh, Lord. I guarantee you that if you hang out in remotely political circles, you are using one or more phrases originally intended to cause offense in a particular type of person, while providing handy plausible deniability of intentional offense for the speaker. Zionism is a big one right now. The word Zionist uses an epithet. Those Zionists. Zionism is genocide, right? That will make 8 in 10 Jewish people extremely uncomfortable because 8 in 10 Jews are Zionists. But, oh, the speaker didn't mean all Jews, just the Zionists. Trust me, when you say Zionist, a lot of people hear Jews because for 8 in 10 people, it's the same thing. Trans-exclusionary radical feminists, oh, sorry, they prefer to be called gender criticals now, go around calling trans women men. Happy Pride. Then these gender critical feminists play dumb at the idea that this is offensive and rude. Oh, they're just standing up for women's rights. As if these trans women aren't women. They know it's upsetting. They do it anyway. Give me a break. Then there's more subtle stuff. People blaming immigrants for things. Of course, only people with darker skin are assumed to be immigrants. It's thinly veiled racism. But oh no, they're not racist. They just want people to come here and learn our way. Right. The list goes on and on. And we have to speak carefully to make sure we're not unintentionally perpetuating these things. But there are subtler communications where meaning gets lost. Oh, I'm so exhausted and I have to do the dishes is not, can you please do the dishes tonight? I'm exhausted. The latter is clear. The first one is, oh, I'm so tired. Of course, women have been trained to do the former because the latter is considered bossy or pushy. I hate that too. Do not hint if you need something done. Can you please look at the document I sent you? Is much clearer than, have you had a chance to look at that document I sent you? Be clear. I need some reassurance is much better than fishing for compliments. There's a flip side to this, of course. There's always a flip side, right? Oh, she's just looking for attention is something that gets thrown around, but so what? What's wrong with wanting attention? Is she seeking it in ways that might be harmful? Well, then that's your issue. Oh, he's just jealous. Probably true. So what? What's wrong with the behavior the jealousy induced? Saying, oh, he's just jealous can minimize someone's pain. And one of my all-time not favorites, don't let it get to you. No one lets something get to them. The phrase is inherently nonsense. What you're communicating there is your negative emotions are an inconvenience to me. Watch the empty, indirect, or inherently nonsensical phrases. Boys will be boys. You know how they are. She's always like that. That's just the way he is. None of these things inherently means anything. They're messages that the person just needs to put up with the bothersome behavior or leave. If you don't want them to leave, cut out the nonsense phrases. Really check in. If you notice someone's gotten upset, don't just keep plowing through, because everything we've talked about tonight drives people away, ratchets up conversations, makes misunderstandings more likely, and escalates instead of de-escalates. And we don't want that. That's bad crazy. We want good crazy. Liana at nottherapyshow.com, nottherapyshow.com, Not Therapy on social media. We are out of time for tonight, so remember, you're crazy is only bad at a problem if it's hurting you. Talk next week.